the time wasting tends to die, like dead the game at certain points, right? We've seen Newcastle do it a lot last season. And Newcastle fans, don't worry, it's not just you, right? Everyone's been doing it.
No, it is you. We hate you. Social media derby. How you doing, Jonty? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Yesterday was a shaky one, but we got through it in the end. So I'm not feeling too bad today.
Yeah, no,
I imagine you're the opposite.
yeah, exactly. Ours was well and truly shaken, not a shaky one. We didn't have a good game week. Let's start off though and chat with you about the Arsenal game yesterday, because I did watch it. So I managed to sit through, watch. I mean, it was a snooze fest, but I don't think it was Arsenal's fault that it was a snooze fest, because I think my quick take on it was you dominated the match until Tomiyasu got 2 yellows and got sent off. We'll talk about that decision, get your opinion on that. And then almost immediately the roles reversed and they were attacking and you were defending, and it was just a backs against the wall kind of job. But I don't think it was necessarily your fault. I think most teams that will go to Palace this season will have, big teams I'm talking, will have a similar problem, because I think Palace have now seen what Forest did and Newcastle did last season against you, and against other big teams, and will play a super low block, and that's hard. And they've got a bunch of athletes on their team that can run and work and track back, and they're going to make life really difficult for you. So, and even then, I would say you had chances. Nketiah hits the post. He does a stupid chip for some reason when he's clean through as well. Like you had some chances, and if anyone was going to score, it was 100% you. But at the same time, I think when you lost Tomiyasu, all right, you were under pressure, and there were some moments where it looked like a half chance might, come about. But really, you were comfortable. But it's just not very aesthetically pleasing. And I know the whole Arsenal thing, is to try and play Arsene Wenger ball type, stylish football. And even Arteta last season ball, stylish football that was winning, but you haven't really quite got it. But yeah, that's my quick take. What's your take on the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think, not to say that teams have figured us out, but I feel like teams understand if you're a slightly lower down the table team, if you're a team that doesn't necessarily have the weapons to go super offensive or to try and keep possession of the ball, this is a pretty decent strategy. You're not going to go out there and batter Arsenal 4-1 or something like that, but you can get something from the game. And I think we've seen it now with a couple of different circumstances. Even teams like Newcastle have done it against us with some success. So I feel like it's the easy way to play against us as a weaker team if you've got the right tools in place to be able to do it. If you can sit in that low block and try and get us to try and break through it. We've seen even with Man City, a couple of seasons gone by, it wasn't always easy for them to get through it either. It's always been a challenge for possession-heavy teams to get through this kind of low block. And so I think from that regard, it doesn't really breed a great style of football in the match, right? You've just got Arsenal trying to pump through it, trying to do all these intricate touches, intricate passes to try and get through that low block and see if they can create some chances. I think we did create quite a few. I think Martinelli had a good chance that he just doesn't want to hit it with his left foot for some reason. Nketiah had a couple of pretty clear chances that a more clinical striker would put away. And I think we did a decent job of trying to break through it. The issue was we just didn't have the clinical kind of ruthlessness on the back end to actually see it through and get the goals. So from that point of view, like a learning lesson for us is that, if we're going to come up against teams that do that, and I think now it's pretty obvious that we are going to come up against a lot of teams that do that against us because it works to some success. We're going to have to be a bit more clinical with our finishes, and we're going to have to try and think through who we've got up there. I want to think through, should we be playing Trossard a bit more? Should we be playing a couple more players that offer us a slightly different attacking option that can, get us some goals, be a bit more clinical in and around the box? And, not to go in too hard on Nketiah, but he's got to put away one of those two chances. I don't care who it is. Someone's got to put away some chances. I don't care if we need to get bloody Balogun on the pitch. if he still plays for us. But something needs to happen to be a bit more clinical against that type of play. When we play other teams that, are trying to be a bit more offensive and want to come out of their own area and want to try and do some stuff, then I think, we're not going to have too many issues. The issue is now smart managers with a slightly worse team are probably going to play like that against us quite frequently. So we're going to have to figure that out. So I mean, generally speaking, it was a bit of a boring game. We had plenty of chances, and if people throw out the word dominating, I don't know if I can go so far as to say we were dominating the match, but we were definitely the better team up until the Tomiyasu sending off. We weren't clinical, and that was really the difference between a 3-0 win or a 1-0 win. Obviously, if the Tomiyasu thing didn't happen, maybe we would have done a bit better, but I think well-deserved penalty. I don't want to hear anything about fouling from Partey. If you've ever seen a football match and seen a corner or a free kick, defenders and attackers are doing that to each other all day long. So I don't want to hear anything about that from anyone. They can all shut it. Obviously, once that Tomiyasu sending off goes, we're on the counter. We're on the defense, and it completely counters what was happening previous to that. And I think Saliba was class, Rice was class. We did even Partey did a decent-ish job in that right back position to really keep all of those constant attacks out. And I think, I'll be honest with you, for about a solid 20 minutes, it was just all Crystal Palace. They were absolutely thumping us up. And I remember a bunch of times Rice, White, Saliba, all just lumping it up to absolutely no one up there. And you could tell from the substitutions that Arteta was making, we went to like an 8-1 formation at certain points of the match. So that last 20 minutes, I don't want anyone to come through and be like, oh yeah, we always knew we were going to do it. That was a nervy last 20 minutes. And I think we dealt with it relatively well, but I don't want to hear anyone saying that they weren't absolutely crapping themselves in that last 20 minutes, because it was all Forest and all Palace and almost nothing us, until I think, was it, like Jorginho came on and was holding the ball up a bit better. We brought some decent options on to, even Zinchenko, when he came on, we started moving a bit further up the pitch. But that 20 minutes, man, my heart was doing bloody backflips.
Yeah, it was in the added time, I think, where you finally managed to get hold of the ball, I think. Because I agree with you, because it was very clear as soon as that decision came. And I should ask you, what do you think about the Tomiyasu decision? Do you think it was a fair 2 yellows, or do you think
you saw me in the group chat? I was ripping into him. I was going in on Tommy, right? Like, I kind of actually missed the first 15 minutes of the game, and when I was kind of getting all settled in, all of that stuff kind of started in terms of the first yellow. I think it's harsh on him, because I think he only held the ball for 8 seconds, but he was really just the scapegoat for that whole move, because it really started from Havertz picking up the ball, then waiting 20 seconds for Tomiyasu to come down the line and get it from him. And then Tommy needs to be aware, like, we've already wasted enough time here. I haven't got a long time to throw this ball. So I get it. It's harsh on Tommy, but as a team, we need to be smarter than that. You can't waste time and think that just because you've thrown it to the next person, they're not going to get a yellow card now. Right, it's not like a first and second serve in tennis. It doesn't start again because someone else has got the ball. So from that point of view, Havertz should be trying to take the yellow card there. Somebody who's not in a defensive position, who's not so much of a worry. So that from that point of view, the first one's a bit harsh, but I can see it, and I don't blame the referee 100% for that. I blame our team for that. The second one, I'll be honest with you, I think that was a fair yellow. I can see it going both ways. I get it. Maybe some people wouldn't give that. But if you're basically on the halfway line and you're the left back and you've got basically 100% space behind you, I know that there were some centre backs that were able to come across, but there was just pure yards behind him, and it was Andre Ayew. So for the fact that was the situation, don't tug his shirt. Even if you tug it a tiniest bit, because he didn't tug it for long. He let go of it pretty quickly. But don't tug a shirt. You're already on a yellow card. It's about knowing the situation and the context and letting that make the decision for you. I think he just got a bit rash and did something he shouldn't have done. And can't argue massively with that isolated situation. I can argue that, Ayew probably should have been off the pitch as well, because he did exactly the same thing like 10 minutes earlier. He was already on a yellow. So if other isolated incidents were a bit more consistent, maybe that wouldn't have happened. But at the same time, if I look only at that that situation in isolation and nothing else. It's a stupid thing to do. I know you kind of disagreed a little bit, right? You thought it was a bit harsh, right?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree a little bit. I disagree completely. Like I understand your logic for sure, but I think both yellow cards are harsh as hell. I think the first yellow card is absolutely not a yellow card. First of all, I don't think anyone, a part of your team, should have got a yellow card for that. Like, I don't know the exact rules for how long you're supposed to, take in between um, set plays or like throw-ons and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure it's completely. You'll find that the time that was taken for that throw-in was probably around the average, and I don't think it would have been wildly above the average, which I think is the whole purpose of giving people cards for time wasting. Like, and then if you break it down, like you said, Sky Sports have been plastering it all over everywhere on their socials directly after. I think Monday Night Football, Karen and Neville and Karen Carney were talking about it. Like, I think he holds the ball, like you said, for like about 8 seconds, and then he literally throws it. So he's not like stopping, starting, and like just holding it. He's actually looking for an option and then throws it. So I honestly, I think that ref is absolutely shit, and he had a horrendous game. And I'm backing Arsenal, which seems weird. So I don't think either should have been a yellow card. I don't think the tug's a yellow card in a million years. Like, I understand a proper tug. If you're all over them, you've got their shirt, and you see those not get given even as a foul sometimes, and definitely not a yellow card. So I don't even think he holds Ayu's shirt properly. I think he literally grabs him, and it's literally in a millisecond he's let go of him already. Like, so I don't even know if you could say that is a shirt pull, proper shirt pull, what we know as one. So I think he's just got unfairly done over. And in terms of your team performance, it stopped then. In terms of an attacking performance, you completely stopped attacking. And as an exercise, it may have been something that Arteta, like I saw quotes from Arteta saying it was, he enjoyed the match and he enjoyed that type of fighting performance. But um, I think it killed the game as a spectacle, and it just wasn't fair. So I think yeah, that referee should have an investigation into him and be dropped for a week, because it wasn't only those decisions. He was making strange decisions throughout. Loads of soft fouls. It looked like he was being influenced by people. There were bare times where I saw someone, appeal, a couple of people appeal a decision, and then the free kick was given. Like, it
Yeah.
almost looked like directly afterwards. So I'm not sure about that ref. I don't even know his name, Michael Coots or something like that, or I don't know, something
Yeah.
like that. But he's rubbish, and I don't think he's got the. We'll get into the ref stuff later on, but yeah, I think he had a poor game, and I
Mm.
think Tommy didn't deserve the yellows. But I agree with what you're saying about, you know, if he did hold on to it too long, if he did pull the shirt properly, those would be really naive moves from your team, and it
Yeah.
would be naive. It would be like a stinky way to get a red card, and it seems to be a common thing with you
Mate, there
guys.
was
This one, this one's
five red
unfair.
cards this weekend, and at least four of them absolutely stink and were not red
Exactly,
cards.
exactly.
And
But you've had this like yellow card. Like, I remember Martinelli getting sent off, like in getting two yellow cards in like 10 seconds for like
yeah,
making
in the
two
same
fouls
move. Yeah.
in, in different parts of the same move. And that was ridiculous. I mean, his actions at that time were stupid. I think one of them was for blocking the foul, and then he came running and like side down a player. So like it was
Mm.
it was quite harsh to give someone two yellow cards for those incidents. And normally most refs will just say, "Look, you've done those two things. You're getting a yellow. You're an idiot. Be
Mm.
careful now." And the ref was extra harsh. But I think this one is like that on crack. I think the decisions were terrible, and I don't think he. And I feel bad for Tommy, man. And this is not some like, like Asians, totally like some big up the Asian guy type situation. It kind of a little bit is, of course, because we want to see our guys do well. But like, I feel bad for him, man. It just seems like it's not coming together for him at Arsenal. Like, he's had injuries and now he's had this, and like, I just want him to get a solid chance in that team, because I think he's class. And I think now that Timber's out, unfortunately, with the ACL, and it seems to be that Gabriel is not in favour, injured or whatever, or maybe doesn't fit this box system. and Zinchenko suddenly is not being played. I don't know. Tommy's perfect to come in, and he's so versatile and play those positions: left back, right back, centre back. And it just looks like it's not going to happen for him because he's going to be out now for a game, and we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, something I didn't mention, but something that I firmly believe again, and I was putting it in the chat is, why are we choosing the teams that we're choosing? We keep going with Partey as a right back. I don't know whether it's to keep everyone happy or what it is, but I don't understand what we're doing here. Right, we've got other right back options. We've got Ben White, who was arguably one of the best right backs in the league last year,
He played well
playing out of
yesterday as well.
position.
He was
right,
good.
and he was really good. We could have played him in the right back position. We know that him and Saka get on well in that regard. They work together pretty well. We could continue to play like that. Stick Gabriel back in the middle. Stick Tomiyasu on the left from the game starting, or stick Zinchenko there, whatever it needs to be. But again, it's just really strange decisions. You saw that, right? Like at some point, he brought on enough defenders where he moved Partey back into like a DM position. And I'm just thinking, why are we doing all these unnecessary changes? I know that there's like nuance to the game and there's nuance to management and there's all these different things you can do. And Pep is obviously, again, I'm not going to go on the same rant that I did last week, but Pep has made it pretty popular now for people to be a bit more fluid and make all these little changes constantly to their team and expect everyone to just be fine and be able to keep going. But at certain points, we've got to be like, all right, guys, we need a settled team here of people that know how to play in those positions. And I don't understand the point of having all these defenders that we do. We've got a really deep, like I saw, it was like a bloody clown car with defenders yesterday. We were bringing on Kiwior and Zinchenko and Tomiyasu, and there were so many players like that were coming out from the bench that were defenders. And I'm thinking to myself, that's 1, 2, 3 reasons why Partey shouldn't be playing right back, and yet he is. And it's the same old story over and over again. And even the man management, I get that the Tomiyasu thing was put Arteta in a difficult position, but what are you doing? Why are we doing this? Can we just keep it simple? Go back to what we're doing. I get it if we want to do this box thing, but I think Ben White can do that. I think that Zinchenko can do that role. Why can't we just start with them lot? I don't get why we're doing all this.
No, but you do know why. Somewhat, it's to shoehorn Havertz in the team, while still keeping in people who are good. Because here's the thing, right? Partey's he's like, okay, he's had a rough time back end of last season. He didn't look fantastic in your preseason. Wasn't great in the Community Shield. According to us, everyone else said he was amazing, but I think objectively he was not in that game. But he is very press resistant, and he's one of your best ball handlers. And I can see why you'd want to shoehorn him into the team. But I can't see why you're so hell-bent, and Arteta's so hell-bent on shoehorning Kai Havertz in this team. And it feels like a crazy experiment that he's doing to try and prove to everyone that Havertz is a good player and he's worth the money. Because I'm not here to hammer him, right? I'm not going to try and go down a Maguire rant on him so early with you guys. And there's plenty of people out there that are giving him no chance already before he's even,
Chelsea fans.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there's a lot of fans. There are a lot of fans that don't rate Havertz, right? I'm one of those people that don't rate Chelsea. We don't rate him. We've had a podcast with Lincoln and stuff where we talked about him. Yeah. Talked about his love for donkeys and how he plays like a donkey here and there and stuff like that. But I see how he could fit into the Arsenal team, but I don't see why he's playing with the team and personnel and shoehorning people in weird positions or unorthodox positions to make sure he's in the lineup. Because from what we've seen, he hasn't done anything so exceptional that you could justify that. If I look at Saka, if I look at Martinelli, if I look at Odegaard, different conversation. Those guys have had moments, periods of time where they've been in such good form that you have to play them. And so I can understand why you might move Martinelli to centre forward, or you might move Saka around different positions to try and make sure you can fit all of those top players in. But at the moment, the Havertz one is a baffling one because I think Partey was decent yesterday, but I don't think the formation suited him against Forest. And I think Forest's goal came from that. And I think
he's not a right back.
Yeah, there are moments where he's going to be he's going to have those Trent moments where he's not got the defensive instinct to make sure he's always in the right position to cover the right
So
back slot. So
that's not
it's
even
an
my
issue.
problem with him. My problem with him in the Community Shield game, in the back end of last year, even in the game yesterday, he loses the ball in a position where he shouldn't be losing the ball. Maybe he can do that in the midfield when he's a bit further up the pitch to try some passes that he's trying. But I saw it yesterday. He's deep in the right back position. He's got loads of people around him. Crystal Palace are pressing us, and he tries a ball like a line splitting ball from the right back position and loses it directly, and then they keep pumping us again. And that's my biggest issue with him. I don't really care about his. I think his defensive qualities are okay. I think he's a little bit slow. I don't know if he's great for that. If you get like a Rashford, for example, on the left hand side bursting at him, he's not going to do very much against that. But against Crystal Palace yesterday, he didn't have that big of an issue. But it's the issue of like when you get on the ball as a defender, your first instinct in most cases is go for the easy ball. Give it to somebody who's comfortable with it. Don't try anything crazy from a right back position, right? And this is where Trent was really good, is that he was able to, in most cases, not actually have to be so deep into that right back position because he was always pushing up the pitch. He was in more of a midfield kind of level of the pitch. So he could play those balls and it's not so bad. And then he's got people around him in the defence and in Fabinho and whoever else that could cover for him. Unfortunately, Partey can't be doing those things. You can't be losing the ball like that constantly, especially when we're getting pressed over and over again. We need some relief from this. Get the ball out. Smash it to Rosette if you have to. Put it deep back to the goalkeeper. Do whatever you have to, but don't be losing the ball in your own last third when we're getting pumped. And he's done it multiple times now, and that was the big thing that I didn't like about him in the Community Shield as well. He was losing the ball in positions he can't be. And with a team like Man City, they're going to punish you for that. With a team like Crystal Palace, maybe not all the time. But if he's doing that against better teams, we're going to get punished. And that's why I don't want to see him in this right back role. I feel like the defense is just too far back for him if he wants to keep playing those balls. And so I agree with you. We're trying to shoehorn Havertz, but we're also trying to shoehorn him in because he's not the best player to play in that position. It's pretty clear Ben White is the best right back we have today, right? Not including Timber. So if he's the best right back we have today, and we've got plenty of other centre backs that are pretty good, Saliba's really good. Gabriel, as much as he's got the bozo gene in him, is a really good centre back at this point in time. Tomiyasu's pretty good. Kiwior might be all right. We've got plenty of centre backs that can actually play centre back. Stick Ben White on the right hand side and keep the centre backs as centre backs. And if you don't want to play Partey, don't play him. You can swap between him and Rice, or you can swap Rice and Havertz. Do something like that. We've got a pretty young team. We're going to have a lot of games this season. We don't need to be doing this now. I would get it if this was like 3/4 of the way into the season. We had a bunch of injuries and we were playing in the Champions League and the Premier League. I get that. It's the first bloody 2 weeks of the season and you're playing these random positions that looks like you ain't got any other choice but to do that. What are we talking about?
Yeah, it definitely looks like crisis preparation. You know what I mean? Like it looks like it's either that or like he's trying to, this is his genius left field tactic and he's, playing the role of Pep in the Champions League final, for example, not playing Rodri and Fernandinho and DM and playing Gundogan there. So
Tinker Taylor Soldier Spy out here. Yeah,
exactly. I think I agree with you, man. I just at the moment the results, you're not suffering because of it. But I do think the fixture list has been fairly kind to you with your fixtures at the beginning of these first 2-3 weeks, and has allowed him to almost take those risks without too much danger. I think you've ended up making it a little bit more dangerous and closer than it needed to be. But I mean, that was always the potential risk when you start tinkering around your team and move people out of position. But I expect to see something more conventional in your next game against Fulham on Saturday.
I hope so.
You're at home. Fulham got absolutely pumped by Brentford. Not great for my FPL. Put Bernd Leno in. He held 3. Beautiful. But what do you think about that game? Let's do the preview on that quickly now while we're talking about Arsenal. What do you think will happen? Surely you're going to get the 3 points.
I'll be honest with you. I think they've got to me, maybe less of attacking threat than Palace had. So from that point of view, I'd like to say that if we make some of these mistakes, maybe we won't get punished again, but that's not the kind of football we should be playing. So from my point of view, I expect that we'll win it. But if it's all down to his team selection. If he comes out with the same selection as last week, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 2-1 or if it was a 1-0 again, if it was a squeaky one that we won it. If he comes out with what everybody that I talk to would agree to say is like our first choice team selection, I can see us winning it 3-4-0. But again, it's all down to what Arteta wants to do. So it's all on him, man. I'm getting to this point now. I've been very pro Arteta, but if I keep seeing this and if we start getting punished for it, man's gonna have to answer some questions out here.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I actually do think he'll revert to a more kind of familiar lineup against Fulham. I do think he probably has just been heard rumours around Gabriel maybe being injured before the Forest game, and then that was the one that really surprised me because, as like you said, he's definitely got the Bozo gene real strong, but he's one of those people who's able to contain it, and it's like his strength and his weakness because you saw him when he came on yesterday. That same energy that sometimes is misplaced and leads to him making errors can be huge benefit when he's playing well and when the team needs him and when he's channeling it in the right way. But I expect him to probably come back into the lineup on Saturday, and I think you will have a comfortable win because I think honestly, if I was a Fulham fan, I'd be bricking it right now, and I think your shout out of them on our predictions episode that they might have some trouble. I know they won their first match, but I think they were really fortunate to beat Everton, even though I know Everton are absolutely god-awful as well. I think Everton should have had a pen, and it probably was more like a draw than a Fulham win. I think they got very fortunate in that game.
Yeah, they were basically giving the game to each other because they were both...
Yeah, exactly. It was just like, it was bum fights, wasn't it? They're both absolutely rubbish. So I think you'll absolutely slap them up, and I think you'll go into that United game with a lot more optimism of a more comfortable win. So I wouldn't be shocked if you won like 3 and 4, like you said. I would be quite surprised if you made it tighter than that because I think we've downplayed Forest, and that victory. They're a good team, man. They won again.
No,
I know they're much better at home than they are away. I know they played low block, but they've got weapons. And I think Palace do too, but the timing of the match made it maybe a little bit fortuitous for you because Elise's out, that Franco guy they bought from Brazil's out. Eze was a bit isolated. I think he was trying to do stuff, but if you've got, I know Ayu's not as bad as everyone makes out, but if you've got Ayu on the right, Schlupp on the left, they're decent, hard-working players, but he needs Elise, he needs some creative players to bounce off, and you've got Edouard up front, who's absolutely pants as well. I thought he was good, man, when he was at Celtic.
I used to think he was good. I thought he was all right last season, but
he was rubbish, man. Him and Mateta are both absolutely crap. They need to get a proper centre forward, because then I think Eze shouldn't be having to do that, man. Because he was balling out at the back end of last season, and it was almost like he just said, "You know what? You're all crap. I'm just going to do this. Me and Michael Elise are going to do this by ourselves." And you didn't even see Zaha really contribute. So I think Palace could have given you a harder game if they had Elise, if they had some better pieces around them. But I think looking at this Fulham team, they're not going to be good, man. I know Paulina's back.
He's more of a defensive player anyway, though. So going
he can't do everything himself.
There's not a big threat. If they haven't got Mitrovic, then where's the threat coming from?
Exactly. They've lost Mitrovic. They've lost Solomon. Williams another year older. They've got Jimenez, who I really rate and like, but I think he's coming to the back end of his bit as well. Yeah, since he's knocked his cop, he's not been the same. So I think you'll be slapping them up, and I think it'll be a really positive wave of energy going towards that United game. And probably less so on my side. So let's talk about United then. I would love to skip this part, but the whole concept of the pod is we have to talk
no
about
chance.
United.
I'm not letting you get away with that.
So we've somehow managed to Spursy it against Spurs and lose 2-0. I have to be honest. I was watching it in and out. You know, I was outside with my partner. She's been away for a while, so we were having some couple time, and I was watching the match on my phone. Um, and to be honest, if you look at the extended highlights, and if you watched it at a glance like I did, I don't think you're able to properly capture how crap we were, because it makes it look like we kind of weren't clinical. It was fairly even, and we didn't take our chances. Spurs took their couple of chances that they had. But from all the analysis I'm seeing, from speaking to you, from the odd moments when I caught it in the second half and I decided I've had enough, it was because we were just completely rudderless. And it was the kind of performance that we were used to under back end of Ollie, under Ragnick. Not too many times did I see it under Ten Hag last season. Obviously, there were a couple of capitulations where we got battered, but there weren't too many matches where we had those kind of performances. Maybe the Newcastle 2-0, I think, was quite similar last season, but Spurs just wanted it more, man. And their manager just got into them, obviously clearly told them, like, close us down, pressure us, be full of energy, be hungry. You know, everyone doesn't rate Tottenham without Harry Kane, the Harry Kane team, as Pep called them. Go out there and prove something. And we've got a bunch of players who, honestly, I think are so far up their own arse that they don't know what day of the week it is. And we give Rashford praise, and I love Rashi, but there's a really common trait in him to just give up and not give enough and not give 100% effort. And I'm sorry, I'm here to back him when people start, rising up their star boys and saying everyone's better than him after 1 or 2 seasons, when he's had 3 or 4 seasons where he's done really well statistically and been our star guy. But let's also not forget that he's had moments where he's gone completely missing and has looked like he's thrown the towel in. And I'm sorry, the excuses that people are saying about him not being happy playing centre forward, suck it up, man. Like, you're not playing in goal. You're not playing left back like Bernardo Silva was asked to do last season. You're playing up front and you're a left wing. You're a left forward. You're not being asked to do something that's so like disrespectful or so unacceptable. You should be able to play that position, man. Like, there's no excuse for you to not give 100%. And I saw him coming off and apparently having a little bit of a show of anger or whatever. I'm really praying that he's angry at himself. And I really hope he's not angry at someone else, a teammate, a manager, or whatever, for taking him off, because he deserved to come off, because he was absolutely he was rubbish. And the little cameo Martial had when he came on shown what a striker should do. The problem with Martial is we always talk about it, he's made out of
Paper mache.
he's made out of rich tea biscuits that have been in the tea for too long. Like, he can't handle anything. But stylistically, he comes on, he holds the ball up, he gives and goes. He does what a striker should be doing. He shows energy. He's moving off the ball. Rashford, when he plays up front, doesn't want to do that. And I'm seeing everyone give our midfield grief, and I'm sure you'll give Casemiro grief, Jamie Carragher, a guy who constantly gets called out on this pod for talking absolutely bullshit. But he, like, our midfield, definitely had problems. You can't play 2 10s and Casemiro by himself. He's 31 years old. Maybe he can hold the midfield at Madrid in Spain when the pace is slower and, he's got more legs and, he can do that. Maybe. But even then, if you look at Madrid, they play with 2 8s. Modric and Cruz did not go bombing forward and leave him completely isolated like Mount and Bruno did. And like, he's going to cop the flack because there's all the jokes about him looking like the kebab boss man and everything like that with his haircut and all that. And I get it. Like, it's maybe not a style suitable for him. But I think he's being scapegoated because he was absolutely left wide open. He was left wide open against Wolves. And I can understand it to a certain extent. Maybe we underestimated them and we thought they were rubbish and, we could leave him isolated like that. But Spurs away, I know there's the gas about Spurs, but you've seen them in their first game. They were decent. Pre-season, they've been decent. They're good at their stadium generally. Like, it was so risky, so gung-ho, and just just really bad decisions made by Ten Hag and the coaching staff, and players played. I don't know if there was a player that played well. I think Onana did well, and he played,
Yeah,
pinging a couple of
he was all right.
balls, and he was very assured. But the rest of the team, poor. Luke Shaw as well. I don't know if I flagged this
Yeah,
to
he
you, but
didn't
there
have
was
his
some
best
convos
game.
going
No.
around Twitter around, oh, Luke Shaw's world class, but world class and Luke Shaw should never be in the same sentence ever. I can vouch for him when he's had really good form, and I'll get on the Shawberto Carlos gas when he's played well, but that's tongue in cheek. He's not world class, and if he's one of the top left backs in the world, that's purely because there are no or not many other good left backs,
Mm.
and that is he's there by
Default.
circumstance, by
Yeah.
default, not because he's pushing the top left backs. If we were to pull the top left backs from the last 20, 30 years, he's not touching the top 50, maybe just
Mm.
about. But like, he was rubbish. Lissandro has looked like someone's kidnapped him and put out his, like, uncoordinated twin
Yeah.
brother to come out and play, because he's looked abysmal. Like, he's still good on the ball, so maybe he is the same Lissandro, but when it comes to decision making, poor man. Defensively, getting dragged out, dragged wide, which is his weakness. He just looks absolutely lost when he's out wide. And then just some of the decision making, marking, picking up men, he just wasn't doing it, man. So
Mm.
I've talked for ages on this, but I think we had chances for sure. If we score the first goal, maybe it's a different game. Ten Hag always says that, and that's true. And we definitely were the better team in the first 30 minutes. And I'd probably say slightly edged the first half, although they were better in the lat 15. But second half, it's like if you were to score it like a boxing match, I'd say we won the first half 10-9, and we lost the second half 10-7, 10-6. Like, they knocked us down a couple of times. Like, we got battered. And it
Yeah.
hurts me to say that against Spurs, because, normally they're light work lane. I think you guys called it last season when you battered them. That's normally what it is for us, but not this season, man. What did you think of it?
Yeah, so I watched it start to finish, and I think in the first 30 minutes, the first half, even, as you say, you guys were good. You were making chances, and when I say good, I mean you were attacking. You offered a threat. I'm not saying you were perfect at all, but you had plenty of chances to put things away. A lot of headers. I feel like whoever's on the training ground needs to teach you lot how to header, because you missed a bag full of headers that really should have probably gone in. The only one I can think of that maybe was a bit harder and did a decent job was Casemiro's one, which I think was in the second half. But I think, yeah, that first half, you didn't put away any of your chances. The big thing that I found really was, and I agree with you completely there, was Rashford was completely missing. Like, all of the attacking that I'm talking about, he wasn't really offering a whole ton of threat. And when he did get on the end of a ball, it wasn't because of him. It was because somebody else did some brilliance, whether it was Bruno or someone else. So he looked poor. And it looked to a point where, as you say, he just doesn't want to be playing in that position, and he's just kind of gives up. And he's like making a point of showing, like, I don't play in that position, so I'm going to show
Yeah,
you that
it's
I'm
like he's
crap in that
sulking.
position. Exactly. And so he wasn't pressing as much as he could have. Again, Garnacho didn't have a great game. I don't know if I like him starting. I do want my prediction of him being like the best young player of the season to come true, but it's not looking good so far. And I think he needs a bit of a rest. Give him some time, put Rashford back into that left wing position, and see if you can put somebody else up top, whether it's Jadon Sancho or something else. But I also think Tottenham were good. I know we want to talk about Man United not being good, but to give credit to Tottenham, and it pains me to do this, they looked good, man. That Sarr looked really, really good. He's really young, and it didn't look like he was too popular back end of last season. But he was good. He looked really good. Basuma looks like a completely different guy now. He was playing really, really well. And I just think that their team, Udogi, looked really great too. Even their centre backs didn't look too bad. Even Vicario, for goodness sake, was looking good after the first game where I was mocking him because he looked absolutely shot. He even looked good. So they were playing pretty well. I mean, Richarlison is Richarlison. He's shocking. Get him off the pitch. Never want to see him play in this league again. He stinks. But they were good. Maddison was good. Even Son, who's been kind of going somewhat missing for a long time, was decent. He was creating some chances. He still looks a bit gun shy, but he was creating some chances. And Kulusevski down the other side looked all right. You guys, I think you maybe made them look good though at certain times. Like the the midfield battle, the central midfield battle, you lost that 100 times over. And it's just, they kind of went through it yesterday after, or not yesterday, but on Sunday after the match. Like, you're playing like this man marking kind of game in the middle of the park. And so all of your players, your central midfielders, get dragged out of position. So you have Mount like going all the way to the left-hand side. You've got Bruno kind of pushing up a little bit. And then you've got this massive gap where you've essentially just got a one-on-one between Casemiro and someone who's usually a lot faster than him. And it's just a question of like, Casemiro ain't checking his mirrors enough, maybe. And people are just dusting past him and he's just getting made to look like a mug. That was the big thing that I think they were going through yesterday. I know Carragher's going a bit too hard on this subject, but he was just showing the number of times that Casemiro got passed with ease. Right? Everyone in that central midfield was getting past him with absolute ease. And it looked like just a lack of organisation, because there were certain points where you'd have Mount would go after somebody like it was, like an aerial ball. Defender doesn't know really what's around him, so Mount tries to go in for it. The defender manages to pull it down and pass it off, and Casemiro's also kind of come in at the same time, and now Mount and Casemiro are getting in the way of each other, and it makes Casemiro look shocking because he gets past so easily because he's trying to get around bodies. And so he just looked, he looked isolated, and he looked, the best word I can think of is exposed. He looked super exposed, and it kind of goes to show that it doesn't matter how good a midfielder is. If you haven't got anyone around him, he's going to look crap. And it's all about the whole system thing. And I think you guys are maybe doing the same thing that we're doing with Havertz. Maybe Mount ain't the right guy yet. I'd understand it. Give him some more time on the training pitch. Give him some substitute appearances. Let him try and figure that position out. Maybe start Eriksen. Maybe start somebody else in that position first and see how things go, because it's not working, man. You guys have 2 consistent matches in a row now against not great opposition. You've been absolutely torn apart in the centre of the park. And that shouldn't happen at Man United. As much as I don't like you lot, it shouldn't be happening at Man United. And the last thing, Lisandro Martinez, the butcher, more like Pat Butcher. I've said that joke about 100 times now, but I'm not letting go of it. He's Pat Butcher, mate. There's nothing butchering or, ominous about that Don anymore. He's scoring own goals now. It won't be long before he turns into bloody, what was the floppy haired geezer from Leicester last season? Shocking.
Phase.
He's going to be Woot Phase out. He's turning into Woot Phase in front of our eyes.
We need to calm down. We need to calm
But no,
down.
he was shocking. I thought Varane was all right. I still think Varane is a Rolls Royce, and I'd love to see him go to Saudi, because you guys are clearly you're not utilizing him. He needs to get out to Al Etihad or whoever that is. But yeah, no.
Al Etihad and Al Etihad.
There you go. Al Etihad. There you go. Get him to one of them clubs, because he's being wasted at United right now. And my last comment will just be on Onana. I put him as flop of the season to be provocative, and that gets the people going. But obviously he looks pretty class at the moment, and I really liked his interview after the game. He was pretty clear about starts with him, even though neither of those goals were his fault really. And I like the ownership that he's taking, because somebody's got to take ownership in that team, and it doesn't feel like anybody else is. So I reckon you should make him captain. Give Bruno half a season, and then give the captaincy to Onana, because Bruno, he's a very good player, and that kind of behind the leg cross, Rabona, that's it, was really nice. But he hasn't got the personality for it, man. There's enough times where I'm seeing him say to his own players, and I'm just thinking, you're a top. Like, you can't be leading this team. I don't mind Onana coming out and shouting at you, but this little twiggy Don that was useless for most of the game, or at least useless for the second half, you can't be telling anyone what to do, man. Get some goals for us, or get some assists for us. Do whatever you got to do, but stop chatting breeze to everyone else. Onana for captain, man. That's how I'll finish my point.
Starting the campaign. Yeah, no, I expected. I expected the Arsenal gas to come out at some point, and you've saved it for the latter part from Martinez onwards. But the rest,
that's not Arsenal gas. Lead shot is Pat Butcher out here. Come on, EastEnders next. Come on.
No. I as I said earlier, like, Leach's, don't know what's happened to him in these 2 games. Don't know what's happened to him for the most part of pre-season. He looks almost like too G'd up, so he's making bad decisions. I will say, and I did say it to you on WhatsApp or whatever, that he is coming back off the injury he had at the back end of last season. He hasn't had loads of game time, and I think he just looks really rusty and off the pace. And I think with a defender like that,
Yeah.
that's quite front foot and aggressive, it only takes that little bit of rust for you to go from timing challenges and blocks perfectly to
Yeah.
completely mistiming them and looking like a donut. And that's what's happened to him in these games. When you compare him with a player like Varane, who really is quite a low risk defender, like he does a lot of mopping up, he does a lot of like high percentage blocks and challenges. Very much Saliba, I think, is modelled very much on the
Yeah.
Varane. He's like the new modern day version, kind of a bit bigger, a bit more athletic. Although Varane is mad athletic, actually, I think it's sometimes
Yeah. No, he is. Yeah.
underestimated. Um, I don't think he's likely to have as many absolute clangers. Like he has had a few. Varane's had a couple with Real Madrid against City, I can remember. I don't know if he's had too many with us. He's had the odd game where he's been uncharacteristically exposed. But with Leacher, I think the chances of that happening are just higher because of his style of play. But
Mm.
we need to get him in match fit ASAP because that defense pretty much crumbles when he doesn't play well, because really he's also tasked with making sure Luke Shaw doesn't shit the bed, and that's a
Mm.
full-time job. And Varane on the right hand side, if he's got Wan-Bissaka, even though I think the Wan-Bissaka defensive demon stuff is hype, like I've seen Rio and a bunch of other people say, he's a great and might be the best, and stay with me here, one-on-one defender, or top five in the world one-on-one defenders. People can't get past him. His
Mm.
problem is he's positionally lax and his concentration isn't there. So he easily gets sucked in or loses concentration and loses his man. That also happened in the Tottenham game. So there's issues there with him.
Mm.
So I really think, and I look at our fullbacks and I look at the centre back position, and obviously if you take Maguire out the picture and he doesn't play, I like our centre backs. I think they can do well, but I always look at our
Mm.
fullbacks and think, don't get sucked into their good performances and think that they're the answer and that those guys are going to be there in the tough and horrible moments. Because I've seen Luke Shaw, like I said, shut the bed way too many times, go missing, and actually go hiding in a lot of games. And our right back, whether it's Delo or Wan-Bissaka, can also do that. And I think really that might have been something we haven't looked at or haven't been able to sort out over the summer window because we've got too many other positions we've been looking to cover. But yeah, I'm not a fan of those guys either. I think they've got potential, but they haven't realized it. And I think their personality and the mental side, they've only proven that they aren't the level. There's been
Mm.
too many drubbings while Luke Shaw's been at the team. There's been too many slappings while Wan-Bissaka's been at the team. Like we
Mm.
we, sh- we shouldn't be um, we shouldn't be receiving 5-0s and or disgusting 2-0s like we did against Spurs and Newcastle and different teams. So I'm worried. And Casemiro point, I take it. I think Carragher's obviously sensationalising it and trying to just get clicks, but there is some basis in how he's being exposed, and you need to look at that. If that keeps happening, I think we have to, and obviously I think there's rumours that we want to get Amrabat or whoever in. So there must be Ten Hag must be seeing that he either
But
needs
surely that's
support
that's going to be a
or
swap in for Mount. That can't be a swap in for Casemiro because Amrabat can move forward a little bit as well.
no. But I think it's both. I think it's to come in for
Ah.
Mount in games where we might need some more solidity, and they're worried that Casemiro is going to get exposed, and there's going to be games where they just think he's not up for it because he's
Mm.
30, 31. Maybe he's not feeling like super fresh enough to take on a big, young, strong, powerful, and pacey centre midfielder. So I think it's for both. It's to cover Casemiro and also to play with him. So I think let's see if we get that player in, whether it's Amrabat or someone else. You might see our style change a bit. You might see Casemiro look better with someone next to him. And I will
Yeah.
say, when Casemiro played with Fred, even though I'm not hailing Fred as the best defensive midfielder ever, someone who worked hard and was able to cover the grass and was a little bit more defensively minded next to Casemiro. If you look in those big games, whether it was Barcelona or City or Liverpool or a lot of the big games we played last season, you often saw Fred
Mm.
come in the midfield instead of Ericsson, or at least Ericsson was pulled at some point to give solidity
Mm.
and put Fred in there. So we currently don't have that midfielder. McTominay is not that midfielder as much as people want to paint him that way. He's much better going forward and than he is going back. So that's a big hole in our midfield. But I agree with you. The Mount stuff might be proven to be a bad signing, but I think it's still too early for us to make that decision. And I think you need to give Ten Hag more time to work on his defensive side of the game, because I do see the logic in having two midfielders like him and Bruno who cover loads of grass and that work their balls off playing in those positions. But I think right now they're too advanced. They need to come back a bit and play more like eights and less like tens. And then I think that system could work. But it's still pretty risky. And definitely I wouldn't think it's the best move when you're going away to the top six or even top eight teams. I think you need to be more defensively solid. And I don't think that was the case, man. So and I do think Ten Hag's got questions to answer off the back of that.
Yeah.
Because number one, I think you should have spotted that in the first game and seen that those were problems that were coming and the amount of times we got exposed, and thought logically Spurs have got a better team than Wolves. That can easily happen again. And then the finishing was abysmal. Like, they got to take those chances, man. Like, I know the highlights I used as an example as to how a game can be spun in a different way when you watch the highlights, but those chances weren't lies; they were there. Bruno should score that header. Rashford should score his header off the back of the Rabona. I think you're being quite nice to Casemiro. I think he should have scored his header. I think Antony should have scored his chance. I think Rashford, even that early chance that he had where Vicario saved it, where he got one-on-one with him, I think he should even score that, or a top striker should do better with that. So those are 5 chances that I can say that we should have had, and that would have changed the game and put us either 1-0 up or equalised with the Antony chance. So yeah, man, I think a lot of improvement needed. We've got Nottingham Forest at home. Notts Forest at home. It should be a banker. It should be 3 points. But yeah, man, you never know the way we're playing. I wouldn't be shocked if we won 1-0 or 2-1, or it was super, super tight and we drew or something like that. In worst case scenario, even if we play the way we do, Forest could beat us on the counter. For a team that's trying to be the best transition team in the world, Ten Hag said, some of the goals we've given up have been on the counter. Some of the chances we've given up have been on the transition. And if you want to be the best transition team, surely that also includes transitioning backwards as well. So we need to work on that, man. But I probably see it being 1-0, 2-1 to United. But I wouldn't be shocked, man, if we lost. What do you think?
No, I mean, again, it's going to come down to the team selection. I think if he keeps it the same as he's done these last 2 games, I wouldn't be surprised if you struggle again, because I just don't think it's working right now. I know that obviously through training, through kind of more cohesion in the team, they should get better at that, but they still look so far away from what they should be. So I would, if I'm Ten Hag, I'd almost kind of not cut my losses now, but I'd kind of say, all right, things aren't progressing as quickly as we want them to be. We're not playing the style of football that we should be playing. I'm not even seeing enough promise from the team to believe in that system more. And I would maybe not revert to type, but I would maybe stick Rashford back on the left. I'd at least change up that front 3. Try the idea of Sancho as a false 9. Try something new up top. I still think that I like the idea of Mount and Fernandes. They cover a lot of ground, but they're terrible defensively in terms of positioning. They're always dragged out of position. I don't know if it's necessarily them or the style that they're playing, this kind of man marking type style that they're doing right now, but something needs to change there, because you can't keep exposing Casemiro like this. He's going to get punished over and over again, and it's not good for a man of, even of his stature to lose confidence in this way, because confidence is a lot of the time what these kinds of players run off of, and they're so sure of themselves that's kind of keeps them going in bad times. But you can't keep leaving him to just get embarrassed and exposed and Carragher to pile up on him every single week. So from that point of view, I'd like to see some changes made. Your back line, I think, is okay. I wouldn't mind seeing Shaw, Martinez, Varane and Wan-Bissaka start again. I think they're decent, but with Onana behind them, they're decent. I think it's the midfield that really breaks the whole system down and exposes a lot of people. It's not just Casemiro getting exposed, but it's everyone getting exposed when you've got, if you're constantly putting them in bad positions. If you're going to put them in bad positions over and over again, you're going to expect them to get bad results, and you're going to expect them to look silly. So, not everyone can have a Virgil van Dijk season every season where they just clean up everything all the time. Even though he only did that really for one season, but not everyone can have a season like that, a game like that every single game. So you've got to sort something out in that centre of midfield. You've got to make Mount play a lot more defensive, or you've got to switch him out for Eriksen or something else. But if you don't, I can see you losing. I'll be honest with you. I can see it being either a draw that you scrape or you lose. Especially with Rashford up front, especially with what's going on now where you're not clinical. At least if you were clinical, if Rashford was firing like he was last season, you might be able to make up for some of the difficulty elsewhere. You might be able to beat, just outgun teams. But if you're not even able to score and your defense, from a defensive perspective, your team looks like that, you can't expect much. You can expect losses.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I do think Ten Hag, I hope he doesn't go down this stubborn route, and I hope he does look at personnel changes or formation changes. I agree with you, man. I think, look, move Rashford out left, put Sancho up front, or Martial up front if he's fit. I don't know why, if Martial hasn't been fit and we've been playing Sancho in false nine, we didn't do that in these first two games. I think he actually looked okay. I actually think it makes more sense for him as a withdrawn false nine than maybe out on the wing because of his kind of lack of pace and maybe also because of his strengths, his trickery, his close control, his touch, his 1-2 passing. It makes a lot of sense for Sancho to play there. So, and I think you would have got more out of Rashford on the left than we've necessarily got out of Garnacho. So I agree with you, man. And I'm not as down on the fact that we could. I think it's possible we could draw or lose, but I think if the same formation, just because of the opposition, I think we could scrape a win, and it's more likely that we scrape a win even with that formation and the same personnel. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a roller coaster, and you're going to need Onana to bail you out. You're going to need your defenders to play extremely well, much better than they have done in the previous matches, to cope with all the action. Because we'll literally
Morgan Gibbs-White is going to be lighting you on fire.
Brennan Johnson, Morgan Gibbs-White, Awanihi, your favourite. They're going to be on us, and they take chances. They're not Wolves. They take their chances. They're not like a young. They're quite similar to Spurs in a lot of ways. They're a young but can be clinical team, and I think Steve Cooper's a good manager. So, they'll be riled up because I think we beat them in every game, home, away, and also in the Carabao Cup last season. So, they're going to be highly motivated too. And if they come like Spurs with that motivation, and we're, come with the same level of motivation we had, I hear you, man. It could go that way, but I think I'm
might be
sticking
the
to
Old
the fact
Trafford
that
vibe,
we might be able to suck it in because Stretford End might be able to suck the ball in and be able to squeak a win. But yeah, I'm hoping that we'll be able to do it. From one really morbid subject to another, let's talk about this elephant in the room when we're talking about Man United, and that is Mason Greenwood. I don't think we've ever really touched on it on the pod. I think we mentioned it briefly in our Morals in Football podcast with Dom. But the decision's now finally been made, 18 months on since kind of his original suspension. Richard Arnold, our CEO, sent out a email to all the fans and also a statement to the press, kind of just outlining the whole situation, the process, their verdict on whether they think Mason Greenwood's guilty of his charges and the crime that's been alleged, and then also their decision on what they're going to do with him. So for anyone who's been living under a rock and hasn't seen this news, we've come to the conclusion through our independent process that he is not guilty of what he's been charged with, but for some reason he shall not be continuing with Man United going forward, and we're looking to either get rid of him via a permanent or temporary transfer. I'm going to be straight out here, and we're not going to pussyfoot around it, or also we're not going to give ourselves massive pats on the back around this. It's not acceptable. Like, regardless of whether or not he's been charged with the crime or not, the stuff that we saw, heard, is enough for us morally to feel extremely uncomfortable with him playing for Man United again, at least Man U fans anyway. So this is really just like this is a non-decision. It's a straightforward one. And all this stuff online, having to, people trying to act like they're done such a good job dealing with such a sensitive subject and blah, 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 or, either saying they should, reintegrate him and say that, go around the legal routes around this. It's a straightforward one. Just be humane, be a human being, and look at the situation. He shouldn't play for us again. If another team wants to give him a chance, that's up to them. And, I'm behind people getting second chances. But for an institution like Man United, you can't have him continue to play for us and be associated with our club. We've had this before. We've had Ryan Giggs, who was protected and was doing just equally as disgraceful stuff during and post his career. And maybe Fergie was a genius or someone who should be chastised for covering it up, but it didn't get this airtime and this kind of publicity that the Greenwood case is getting. But regardless, it's a straightforward one. From a Man United fan perspective, get him out of the club. And I'm sorry, I have to look at the club as well and say you've dealt with this poorly. Because it's quite obvious that we were going to bring him back. And that the Athletic exposed this stupid, ridiculous, and so crazy, I can't believe it, crazy plan to bring him back. They exposed it, and what do Man United love more than, maybe only money is the thing that we love more than this, but what do we love more than football? Positive PR. Looking like we're doing the right thing, trying to make us look good. And what happened was that Athletic article came out, exposed that we were ready to bring him back, and all the rubbish that we were doing in the background to try and get people to come on our side and support us in this decision. And because of that expose and the bad press and the social media backlash and everyone going overboard and crazy about this decision, we've pulled the plug on it. And it's just to save our own face. And it's not to look at Mason Greenwood's best, his well-being and what's best for him. It's not to look what's best for, even more importantly, the victim, her family, any of the staff who are upset or the players who are upset about it. Is literally just to save face. And that's just the cold hard truth about it. And I don't know, from my perspective, there's nothing more to add. But yeah, John, what do you think from a rival perspective? What do you think in seeing this?
I mean, just from a person's perspective, just from a warm-blooded human being, I agree with you. It was handled poorly, and I think for Man United to take all this time to supposedly conduct their own independent investigation, first of all, get rid of the word independent. You have massive biases. Anybody at a football club talking about a player that plays for them right now that is technically an asset of their club cannot conduct an independent investigation fairly. And I think it was cheap to come out and say we find him not guilty, as if anybody gives a crap about what Man United think about whether he's guilty or not. No one does. I'm sorry to say, you're not a legal institution. No one would trust you, to look after their bloody pet hamster, let alone to make a decision of this magnitude. So I think from that point of view, I didn't like that. And unfortunately, I'm a forwarding member, so I received the email from Richard Arnold. I think that was completely cheap. I feel like you went and took 18 months to go and do all of this investigation, came out to say he's not guilty, and then you're not playing him anymore. It doesn't connect the dots. So either, you find him to be guilty, or you just don't find anything. You don't do an internal investigation and come out and say that you're, numero uno and your independent investigation has found him this or found him that. You do your internal investigation, you say he's going to play for our club or he's not going to play for our club again. That's all that needs to be done. And I think the fact that it took 18 months for you guys to make that decision, ridiculous. I think the fact that you essentially wanted to bring him back and then only, as you say, because of PR did not, ridiculous. And I think we can all see through it. And I think every fan today is getting sick and tired of not just football clubs doing this, but just businesses in general, right? Businesses in general, always watching the bottom line, never really taking into account the humanity of issues around them. And I think this actually goes to show problem maybe with the ownership structure. I think the Man United engine, the machine that is Man United, since the Glazers took over, has become even more commercial, even more capitalist, to the point where, you only care about PR and what it looks like because you're publicly traded and this, that, and the other. And you start making stupid decisions based off of your stock price or stupid decisions based off of this monetary metric. And I think it's a cancer in football. And I think your leadership have completely glazed over the fact that this is a human being on both sides. And I don't want to hear it about you care about the victim or you care about the well-being of the player. It's total. Just come out and say what the truth is, right? It doesn't make sense for your bottom line, so you're not going to play him. All right, cool. Move on. Not like anyone's going to bat an eyelid that a big faces corporation's gone and done another horrible thing again. But don't come out with this holier than thou BS about how you care about everyone. You've done your internal investigation on this, that, and the other. Don't save us the time. All right, just get on with it. You say you're not going to play him anymore, and let's move on. Don't do this backwards and forwards. Just get on with it. We've had enough of this whole, not had enough of the saga or anything else like that, but I've had enough of Man United dragging all of this stuff out. You're not doing any service to Mason Greenwood by dragging it all out. You're not doing any service to the victim by dragging all of this out. Just get it over and done with, and let's move on. And let's not act like football is some allegory for social issues and like what Gary Neville likes to say about this, that, and the other. Just move on, get on with it. Don't come out with this independent investigation crap. Just get on with it, man. So yeah, I'll be honest with you, I'm sick of hearing about it now. It's a poorly handled situation. We've got so many things going on in the world right now, and we've got to listen to bloody Richard Arnold preaching to us. Off, man. I've had enough of all of that.
And preach, but we also know he's just lying. So yeah. This is the thing. If I believe somewhat what you're saying, or some element of what you're saying, I can even understand your point of view on that. You could still say, look, I don't want to hear your preaching. But when we know so clearly, so obviously that this is all a PR exercise, and what you said, it's not even about the bottom line now. Well, maybe it is now, but for a different reason. It's now more like save face to protect the company, the value and the bottom line. Before it was about keep him because he's an asset and he brings value to the club. Again, the bottom line. Never, ever, ever, ever once has this been about what actually happened, what allegedly has happened, and what actually has happened to either one, Mason Greenwood or his partner. More importantly, the partner. Never has that actually been the central core part of this process. And they can lie and say it was, but it wasn't. And this is why, like you said, just get it over with. Let those people try and live their lives now and rebuild their lives, and let them concentrate on more important things than the football and the football club. Because there's a famous interview with Sir Alex Ferguson and Cristiano Ronaldo talking about reminiscing when Ronaldo came back to the club. I know it ended terribly, but let's focus on the beginning part when it was all beautiful, romantic stories. And they were talking about how, Sir Alex Ferguson learned in his early part of his managerial career, one of his players came to him and asked for a day off, and he asked why. And the lad mentioned that his mother had passed away. And Sir Alex said, absolutely, take more days off. And it dawned on him that there were more important things than the football club. I know it might seem like something trivial or super obvious, like how could you just, suddenly let that dawn on you? But he realised that that was something that he had to take in his managerial career going forward and show empathy at all times. And he used that when Ronaldo, his dad was really poorly and he let him have some extra time off. And that, if you go back and listen to what Ronaldo says about his relationship with Alex Ferguson, one of the big things he cites is the fact that Ferguson gave him that time off and was completely empathetic and showed compassion to him when it was a really difficult time. Something that goes beyond football, that's more important in your life, your parents, your loved, your partner, your children, something like that. And let's not act like that Man United are that club, because they're not. As soon as Alex Ferguson left, we're not that family club anymore. That's a lie. We're not. We're a big commercial entity. There's benefits and beautiful things about that, but oh my god, there are a lot of horrible, disgusting, like wolf-like things that happen in those kind of corporations, and they prove it time and time again. And this Greenwood thing is another example of that. So yeah, let's move on now, man. Let's let them move on with their life. Hopefully they can repair it. Hopefully the victim can get a good life out of what's happened, or is able to actually have a good life after everything that's happened. Let's hope Greenwood can turn around his life and make something better of it, and learn from all of this. And let's just move on, man. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Like that it's done now. We stink. We will stink forever because of this case. And yeah, let's not dwell on it, and let's move on to talk about other stuff. More moaning incoming, because we're about to talk about refs.
Oh no.
Yeah, we can actually be a bit lighthearted about this part. So yeah, there's been lots of interesting decisions made in these first 2 game weeks, shall we say. A lot centered around additional time, I think, was the big thing at the beginning. I know you want to talk on that, Johns. Some really strange or really soft yellow card stuff. We talked about Tomiyasu earlier, but there's been countless other bits. And then my bugbear, the whole handball stuff. So let's talk about the additional time first, Johns. They're carrying over this World Cup style 10, 15 minute real additional time being added because of the, I think it was basically because of the revelations that came off the back of last season, that the ball in play was only, ball was actually only in play for like 55 odd minutes or something like that.
Yeah, it was decreasing.
It was a new low in Premier League history. So what's your take on it, this additional time?
Well, so I mean, my main take on this really is I've seen a lot of people come out and say, you're ruining the game, or the traditionalists, you're ruining the game, you can't keep adding on all this time, it makes no sense, just play the game like it was, put your hands up if you think you've been robbed of time. It's all bollocks, man. What are we talking about here? We've got rules in football. It's not like the traditional game has not changed over the last 20, 30, even 50 years. The game changes, the game evolves for the sake of a number of different reasons, right? We put these rules in place for loads of different reasons. I'm going to give an example, right? Safety. We've had harsher penalties on fouls, essentially, right? Before, what used to be a yellow card, or what used to not be a yellow card, is now like a yellow card or a red card. Back in the day, you could get away with 2 foot in someone and you'd be fine, right? You've got rules in place around concussion protocols to protect players. You've got rules in place around the number of substitutions that can be made in order to protect players from an increasingly, let's say, intense schedule, right? So we've had safety rules coming in place for years now, and no one can complain about those because they're for the benefit of the players and the benefit of us watching it too. We don't want to see people break their legs. I remember when I watched that Eduardo, leg break, changed my life. I didn't want to play football for about 6 months after that, right? You've also got rules coming in about fairness. We've had punishing diving. You've had VAR to clarify decisions. You've had goal line technology, FFP rules, punishing time wasting, limits on registering players, handball rules, changes to the offside rules. You've got so many rules that we've put in place over the last 20 years specifically to make the game more fair. So why are we complaining about adding more time on when people are wasting more time and we're, as consumers, getting to watch less actual football? Because people like Newcastle and apparently people like Tomiyasu now, apparently, are wasting a bunch of time, right? We've also got rules around the promotion of what we consider to be ideals, right? Like homegrown player rules. Back in the day, there was nothing like that. They shortened the transfer windows. Back in the day, you could do whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted. Fergie was great at that, right? Banning betting sponsors, promoting goals through changes to the offside rule. We've had so many examples of changes to the rules specifically for those 3 major reasons. So why are we crying? The numbers of minutes that are being played are going down. And while we might not feel it, we haven't got a stopwatch out. The decrease from 60 to 50 is not something that is very clear to people that are just watching the game and not got their stopwatch out. But we are slowly getting robbed of football because of these rules. So let's change them. We're getting shortchanged as consumers. I want to see more football. I want to see more excitement, right? The time wasting tends to dead the game at certain points, right? We've seen Newcastle do it a lot last season. And Newcastle fans, don't worry, it's not just you, right? Everyone's been doing it.
No, it is you. We hate you. We hate you.
I can't neither confirm nor deny that. But we want more excitement, and you're dead in the game by doing all of that. So what are we talking about? And also, there's more and more money in the game now. We talk about it all the time. There's so much money being thrown around, so much at stake nowadays that was never really at stake back in the 60s and 70s. No one cared about it that much. It wasn't that big of an industry. It's a huge one now. We've got so much more at stake. If you're going to lose out on millions of pounds, like let's say, for example, a team is about to go down and someone time wastes when they could have got a goal. They've lost millions of pounds now because of unfair rules, right? No one cries about that. Like, if they change the rules to make things more fair for teams that are about to go down, we've got balloon payments, all of these kinds of new rule changes to allow for that, right? It's so frequently, there are massive decisions that change games that we don't agree with. And they're actually trying to do something about it by changing the rules. Fair play, they're doing it absolutely horribly. And this is the part where I'm maybe going to make a concession, which is the implementation of every single one of these rules has been shocking. Absolutely shocking. You've implemented this system now with it, where the first couple of games, everyone was putting their hand up to give yellow cards, and they got one. I saw Thomas Partey do that yesterday. I love it. I love Arsenal as much as the next guy, but he should have got a yellow card for that as well. Then, what are we doing? What's the implementation here, where you choose like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna roll the dice every game, and if it's an even number, I'll punish this. If it's an odd number, I'll forget about it for today. You even saw, I can't remember which game it was, but a referee, I think it was Anthony Gordon, committed his first foul, which was clearly a yellow card. Goes and does a second thing again. Referee looks at him for a minute, thinks to himself, oh no, that guy's already got a yellow card. I don't want to send him off. Reaches for his pocket, puts his hand back away. What is this implementation? So to summarize, let's not complain about changing the rules, because we've been seeing rule changes all the time. So Rory, Boovy, whoever traditionalists that want to say that we can't change football, it's the people's game. Yeah, the people's game and all that. Get off your high horse. The game's been changing for a long time now. If you're going to call out anything, call out the implementation, call out the referees association, the PGMOL. But let's not talk about, oh, you're ruining the game by changing all these things. Shut up, man. Move on.
All right, I'm not going to move on from this subject, though, because I want to chat about it as well, because I asked you about additional time and you've covered every single thing. That was like a Rafa Benitez facts rant.
Oh,
you
mate.
Remember that rant that he had where he just pulled out all these random facts? Felt like you had like a scroll already that you have underneath your cam. But nah, man, I agree, man. I think, look, with the additional time, there's two options. How you prevent people taking the piss, basically, with time wasting, is you either go out there and give every single person a yellow card, and you're super strict, as strict as you've been on Tomiyasu, but consistently throughout the season in all circumstances of time wasting, and without any kind of anomalies or like things where you, for example, the Gordon thing where you see someone's on a yellow and you decide not to do it. You do it absolutely to the letter of the law, black and white, all the time. Then I'm fine with it, man. Because if that happens and that ruins a spectacle, you blame those players that were playing that way and that manager for choosing that style. The second option, which I feel like is the easier and lower barrier option and is going to get less complaints, you add on time. And you actually make it so that regardless of you waste time, that time's being added on, mate. You're not going to be able to, you're not gaining anything from this. Yeah. And for the people out there that complain and say, oh, this might make, families, delay families getting home and completely break a chain in this very delicate, travel system that happens off the back of live matches. Don't talk rubbish. When you play,
they had a game start at 8 p.m. On
Exactly.
Saturday, they had an 8 p.m. kickoff. You don't talk about that rubbish.
Exactly. And then on the first game week, Arsenal's match got delayed because of the ticket system for half an hour. The Brentford Tottenham match got delayed because of some water situation that was going on, and every single fan ate that up. All right, maybe they were online complaining. People are always going to complain, by the way. There's not one thing that you can do to stop a person complaining. They'll find a way. So that's rubbish, man. These are all changes that will help improve the game. And this is the thing. When these guys talk about these people talk about this traditionalist stuff, all right, are you willing to go all the way back to in time to when a Chinese man, one of our men, were kicking a ball, kicking around like a little, I don't know, like a cow's bladder that was blown up, and play that original football? Yeah, you want to do that? Let's do that then. Every single thing that you love about this game was implemented as a change or improvement to a previous version of the game. So shut up. That's a whole dead point. You're not making a point. That's just rubbish. That's just some idiot who, or it could just be like a regular man who doesn't really like changes. A lot of us don't really like changes. But let's be honest, it's improving the game. It's making it better. 9 times out of 10, it's a positive. The 1 time out of 10 that's not a positive, that rule or that law pretty much gets eradicated the next time that they can remove it. So just relax. It's not something to kick up a fuss about. In terms of the yellow cards, again, we are talking about implementation problems. I don't think of the added time. I think they're getting that right for the most part, and I'm not against that. I think the implementation of that's actually okay. So far, anyway, it's only been 2 game weeks, but the yellow cards, that's all over the shop. I agree with you. I was watching that match yesterday. Partey did it. I think Odegaard did it. A couple of other people, even on the Palace side, did it. No yellow cards. So now suddenly doing the imaginary yellow card isn't a yellow card. I don't know, man. I can't keep up with it. And then this handball stuff. All right, this is when I need to be on the Summer Jam screen, right? This thing is driving me up the wall because how many handball decisions have we seen given as a penalty, should we say, right? Like, because that's the biggest high stakes, kind of scenario where you get handball given. I think that Garnacho one is a stonewall penalty. I think unless the rules have changed and suddenly an outstretched arm, all right. So basically, what it looks like is there are about 4 elements to this handball rule. One is natural position.
Yeah.
The other one is proximity to the ball. The other one is whether it's like diverting the ball away from goal or possible goal. I don't know what the other one could be, right?
Well, the other one's if it's come off another part of your body first, like if it hits your knee and then
it hits your knee and then it hits your arm. Why the F are we making it that complicated? This is the thing. This is when adding too many sub-laws to a law is overcomplicating it, and you're not helping people with the implementation. That's something they need to actually look at the law to make it easier for people to implement it properly. That's not a yellow card thing that we talked about. That's not the added time. That's not your rant list of different things, which are all pretty black and white and people are just it up. This is so murky. Because if I look at that Romero one, obviously I'm going to talk about my team's one, then his arm is out. But is it very close? Proximity? It is quite close. Is the ball going towards the goal, potentially stopping a goal? Yes, it is. Yes. Did it hit another part of his body and roll onto it? No, it didn't. So by averages, that's 3 out of the 4 things that it ticks. That's a fucking penalty, man. I'm sorry for going overboard. That's a penalty. What are we doing here? Does it need to tick every single box before it's a penalty? Or does it need to tick most of the boxes before it's a penalty? Or does it need to just tick one of the boxes and that's the one that referee values more than the other? I have no bloody clue. But if it ticks 3 out of the 4, that's an effing pen, man. And give it. But then you look at the other ones that weren't given. So I think there was one
Declan
that Arsenal had.
Yeah, Declan Rice won. Nicholas Jackson.
Lewis Dunk was given for an outstretched arm. I don't know, man. This is just not... It's not possible to understand what is a handball penalty decision anymore. It's just not. Yeah. Because you have to go through that list, and when you check that list off, I think the only one that now is like going to be something that no one can deny is when they tick all of those boxes.
Yeah.
But like for me, you shouldn't have to tick all of those boxes for it to be a handball. Some of those boxes are rubbish. Some of them are very important. And so, I just feel like if you have one of those three, then really it should be a handball.
Mm.
And if you get to a position where it's three of those four, sorry, one of those four, I should have said before. If you've got three of those four, then come on, man, how is that not a pen? That's got to be a pen. So this is where the law needs to be looked at properly. You know how we went through the different versions of the offside rule, and they've kind of got it to a place now where I think we're all pretty comfortable with it, and we're not like, measuring armpits and all that that we were doing before. This handball rule needs to be looked at, and they need to fix it. Yeah. Because otherwise you're going to get teams that are constantly going to feel like they're going to get, all right, it's United now, and everyone calls us Varchester United. So everyone, there are no violins coming out for us. I get it. Right? I get it. But it's going to happen to you lot. It's going to happen to Luton, and the little clubs are going to get their tissues out and start crying a river for everyone. It's going to happen to all of us. So they need to fix it, man. And these refs, they're not competent enough for you to give them grey and murky rules.
Yeah.
And I don't want to feel like I'm hammering officials, right? Our mum's a tennis line judge, for example. They get things wrong sometimes, right? Officials got a hard job. But these football officials, they're idiots. I'm sorry. The ones that we have at the Premier League, maybe in the Championship, in League One, in other levels of football, they're doing a great job, and they're actually officiating properly. But when we look at the pinnacle of our sport in England, none of our officials deserve to go to a World Cup. It was a travesty that Anthony Taylor went. He's rubbish. How the hell did he go to a World Cup? So, and then he's apparently the best. Oh my God, if he's the best, then who's this Coots guy that was doing your match yesterday? Who's all the other ones that are doing the rest of the matches? They're all trash. They're terrible. And it's a hard job. Don't get me wrong. I've officiated some matches, at way lower level, just doing like uni football when I was at uni, and that's hard, man. It's a really hard thing to do. But these lot are not capable of doing it to a high level. So the rules need to be black and white. They need to almost be as black and white that you could go and get a robot or an AI to come in and do it. And that's the level we've got to. It needs to be so self-explanatory for them to do a good job.
Yeah.
And this handball stuff is the thing now that's exposing them to the next level. There's other little things that you're talking about, like the yellow cards and other stuff that, certain refs are just cocking up and showing their incompetence. But this handball thing is going to show them up. It's going to be a litmus test for all of these referees. And really, the PGMOL or whatever they're called, whatever the stupid acronym name they've got, they're being proven to be a bunch of useless twats right now. And Howard Webb, I actually quite like Howard Webb. It's not because he used to give us all the decisions, that's part of it, but it's also because he seems like a decent human being. When you hear him talk, he seems like a decent guy. It doesn't seem like he's, full of himself or he's trying to do anything other than try and improve our level of officiating in our league. But he's not getting it right yet. And he needs to actually look at his referees and his officials with an objective eye and say, you're balls, mate. So I'm going to make your life easy so even you can't F it up.
Yeah.
And if you are rubbish, fair enough. I respect when he's out there giving out apologies. Doesn't help. I want those 3 points. But your apologies help. There's something, at least. Yeah. When the
Accountability, at least.
Exactly. When Anana's going out and giving someone a big hook, left hook or an uppercut, and the referee's not giving that obvious penalty, and he drops him the next week, that's what I want to see. But you have to do that to everyone. We'll have no one. We'll have parents. We'll have parents of the players coming and officiating like Sunday League when the ref doesn't show up. You'll have someone just come in and jog and have to do it because the referees are useless. But that's what they need to do, man. They have to hold them accountable. And this handball stuff, I can't keep screaming that's a flipping handball, and then like suddenly VAR says no, it's not, and all the commentators are completely baffled by what's going on. Right? I will not have them drag Peter Drury, the legend, the poet, through the mud and make him look like an absolutely clueless muppet. Like, they're not going to do that to my guy. So they better work this out, because otherwise, honestly, people will start going to watch Bundesliga or whatever else where they're being officiated properly. Eventually, people will lose their rag and just say, you know what, I don't want to move to Munich or Hamburg or one of those places, even though I rate them. I want to stay here, but I'm going to watch Harry Kane and all of them, man, on Bundesliga or on Sky Sports, because at least that match is being officiated normally and there's some competence involved. Like, honestly, people will reach that level at some point in the future if they don't fix this. So they've got to sort it out, man. Terrible.
Yeah, no, I mean, the last thing I'll say also is let's get rid of this clear and obvious, please. I've had enough of it. You know, in tennis, right? When the umpire overrules a line judge's call, right? They call it out. The line judge, the umpire immediately says, "Nah, not out. That was in. Replay the point." Right? He doesn't do it when it's clearly and obviously out or clearly and obviously in. He does it every single time. If they call it out and it's in, he calls it, or they get Hawkeye out and they look at it. Stop with this clear and obvious. As Anthony said, the referees today are mostly incompetent because they've been given 1,000 rules to try and remember while also pegging it round a pitch for 90 minutes at a time, right? With dons of all persuasions, calling them a 24/7, and you've got them trying to remember 100 different rules at the same time. Get rid of all of that. Have VAR actually earn their money, right? If it's clear and obvious, in his ear, nah, that was a throw-in, mate, to the other side. Change it. Done. Quickly. Let's get it moving. Why do we need to say, that wasn't clear and obvious enough for us to change it, so we'll just let a shitty decision go ahead? No. Change it. You've got the eyes. You've got that whole room. Why have we stuck you in some shed, $1 million shed in the middle of nowhere to watch the game and then not make the decision when it's wrong? Clear and obvious, my ass. Just call the bloody decision. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty. If it's if it's a handball, it's a handball. They can literally sit there all they want with the bloody handbook in front of them and watch the game quickly, turn through a couple of pages. Oh yeah, okay, change the decision. What are we talking about? It doesn't make any sense. Why does it need to be clear and obvious when you have those are adjectives that are varying levels of across the scale? It can be somewhat clear or very clear. A little bit obvious or very obvious. They're not, measurable things to say. So I've had enough of that. Just call it when you see it. If the referee's an idiot and he gets all of them wrong, that's how you know he's an idiot, and get rid of him. Right? Not, the clear and obvious one, yeah, he got away with a few today, so we'll let him go and do next week's game. What are we doing? I'm sure you can get a couple of fans out. Get Peter Drury to be the referee of every match, I say. Let him just speak as well as the match is happening on the loudspeaker.
This has suddenly become a Peter Drury loving, but I'm calm with it. I love him. What a legend. But no, I agree with you, man. I think I can speak on behalf of us at least, and I would hope most football fans we just want the right decisions. I don't think it really matters how we get there and what terminology is used to define that, clear and obvious and whatever else. Just want as many right decisions as we can get. And right now, we've got the technology that we can get, I would think, almost all of the right decisions, not only the clear and obvious ones. So let's just do that. And there's a way that can be done where you're not stopping the game all the time like basketball, whatever. It's there. That technology is literally available so that we can see it a few seconds after it happens. So why can't the ref get that information when we're getting it straight afterwards, when someone's watching it? Like, we're choosing not to get more right decisions. And it's to try and protect the game so that some of these kind of traditionalist people can't moan and complain about how we got the right decision because they didn't think it's the right way, or it's not in the purity of football, or whatever rubbish those people say. Look, we want the right decisions, man, and then we want the best team to win off the back of that. And that's just all it is. So yeah, we'll leave it there for now. We can rant more on the referees and the rules for I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunity throughout the season. Yeah. But yeah, man, we've got a couple of weeks left, less than 2 weeks left of the transfer window. We'll be covering, and we'll probably go back and look at our predictions, I think, after the window closes, to just make sure we cover our asses. At the moment, I can see quite a few shambolic takes in there.
Yeah.
Although Villa banged Everton up. I know they're nothing, but that makes me feel a bit better about my original take on Villa. Drury and Timber less so, but yeah, good luck to him, man. I feel bad for him, and Garnacho. Yeah, there's a couple of stinkers in there, but yeah, we'll keep flagging it until we're able to change them. But yeah, anyway, we'll do that in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, thanks, Johns. We'll wrap the pod up here. I think we've got our rants out. We've hammered a couple of different people. And we can move on to the next game week, and hopefully both our teams win. But yeah, thanks for chatting, Johns.
No worries, mate. My pleasure. I'm always happy to rant.
Yeah,
I
man.
need to change. I need to get my name to be Rants and Bants, mate. He needs to,
Yeah,
give
exactly.
me the trademark for that, mate.
Shout out rants and bants. But no, yeah. If you're listening on audio platforms, we'll make sure we'll keep shouting this out every single pod until those numbers go up. But yeah, if you're listening on an audio only platform, make sure to follow. Make sure to leave a 5-star review if you're listening on Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. There's plenty of content now for you to make some real judgments on me and Johnson's takes on a lot of different things now. So make sure you get in the comments and share your views on what we've talked about. Share the pod with your friends or people that you think are interested in United or Arsenal or football in general. And yeah, just try and help us grow if you can. And yeah, thanks a lot, guys. We'll catch you next week.
Cheers, Ant. Cheers, everyone.